We are live, ladies and gentlemen, with the Tea with the Arcane Bear. I have a wonderful guest for you today, a good friend that I met while traveling in Bali. I think something that's really important for you guys as well, going over and telling the story of your brand. We've got Celinne Da Costa from Bali. How are you doing, Celinne?
I am doing excellent. Hello
So
from Bali.
yes, it's a wonderful, wild time to be transitioning business. And I thought this was a great time to have you on and kind of give us a little bit about your background and what you do with businesses and brands. Because I think a lot of people are going to need this information now as we go into a very digital age. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work as a mindset coach as well as a brand strategist. I've been doing this for a few years now. I come from a corporate background in brand strategy. I used to work in advertising, and now I'm working with entrepreneurs to help them tell their story in a strategic way that helps them grow their brand as well as their business so that they can show out into the world as their most authentic self and get results in their life and business while they're at it.
Yeah, it's great. We just had a guest on yesterday, Michael Brody Waite, who went from being a drug addict to a CEO, and he said one of his things was like blatant truth telling or like wild authenticity, which is going out of your way to make sure that you're sharing even the most vulnerable parts about yourself. Um, can you tell us what type of transition you're seeing right now in the clients that you're working with from, maybe a mom and pop, let's say, like, they make salad dressing and they're selling locally. How are these brands going to transition into the next few years? And what's some of your best advice for this storytelling idea?
Mm. Well, what was happening before, the whole pandemic? Am I allowed to talk about that?
Yeah,
By
it's
the
okay.
way,
The elephant in the
okay.
room, right?
It's like the elegant I talk about. So what's been happening leading up to this whole pandemic is, yes, we're like transitioning a lot into online businesses. There's been a rise in entrepreneurship, and then also just with the digital world, with technology going on, there's a lot of automation happening. We're hyper connected more than ever before. And what's essentially been happening is what is missing really here is human connection. It's human contact. I mean, you can't even freaking get somebody on the phone these days, like an actual human being. We are starved for human connection. Everything is digital. And so with this trend that's been going up and up and up and up, what we're seeing is that in an oversaturated market where everybody's just like pumping out their message, and it's so easy to, right? It's so easy in today's digital world to just like blast the planet with whatever it is on your mind, on your story, on your social media, all this noise. And right now, what is really standing out is that human touch, that human connection, which is done by story. Storytelling is something that is as old as time. We are genetically wired to respond to it. Our brain fires off chemicals when we hear a good story. It releases oxytocin in our brain. It releases dopamine in our brain that makes us chemicals that make us more social, that makes us more empathetic, that increases our level of tension. Storytelling is 22 times more memorable than facts. And this is all scientifically proven. And so storytelling, what does this have to do with this whole pandemic thing, what's going on today, and what businesses need to move on in the future, is that people's eyeballs and their attention are going to gravitate now to the businesses that tell the best stories. This was true before the whole corona thing exploded, because of how oversaturated the market was. The brands that basically pop out are the ones that have the strongest, most captivating brand story. And now even more than before, because now it's like, with everything that's happening, yes, you need to have a strong story and it needs to be relevant to what's going on. And it needs to be flexible. So the brands, the businesses that are really going to thrive right now are the ones that know how to tell a good story, which is going to stand them out against the market. And in addition to that, know how to be relevant to what's actually happening right now. Because what a lot of businesses are doing is they're just like they have their, how do you say it in English? The
Blinders.
horse.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they
Tunnel
have
vision,
their
tunnel
the horse
vision.
blinders on, tunnel vision, and they're just like, okay, let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. Like things are gonna change. Things are gonna change. Things are not gonna freaking gonna change. Like it's we have pivoted directions like forever now and always. And now what businesses need to do is start to shift their brand and their messaging to be able to continue creating these really human connections with their audience, and also being able to adapt their messaging to what is going on around them rather than just like living in their own little bubble.
Yeah, it's a really important thing you've brought up here, which is, and I've stressed this a few times too, is that don't get caught up in trying to account for what and how we were living our lives before the pandemic started. Building new businesses or maintaining existing businesses right now really is going to be defined by your ability to be adaptive in these types of markets. And I think you're so right here, is that you know, over the past few years, I've noticed that social media and even e-commerce in general has been fairly saturated by almost a kind of like a superficial look at me, look at what I'm doing. And I've been noticing the trend where things are going into a lot like authenticity. As we started this conversation, has been a big key factor lately. Is if you don't do that now, if you're just like, I can't imagine people are going to take it too lightly if if your brand is mostly a travel brand. How do you think brands are going to be able to transition from saying, like, hey, look at us, our product is so good. Do you think that this is the prime time to be transitioning into, hey, look at how much more good we do with our story and our brand than just telling people how good their product is?
Well, that would be something that should have been done to begin with. Like, it shouldn't be just about how good your story is, sorry, your product is, but also, what makes standout brands are, and not only that, when I say standout brands, it's not just what customers perceive, but it's also how you're showing up and feeling good about what you're offering and the way that you are presenting yourself. And every brand now more than ever needs to be extremely connected to their why, to the bigger reason why they're doing this to begin with, to their what, which is what are they doing, what is the transformation that they're providing, and to whom, as well as their values and living by their values. And that's what people are going to pay attention to right now, because even if your audience, given the whole economic situation, even if they can't buy from you right now, or even if your sales take a hit, this now is the time for you to be building your brand, to be there, to be showing up more so as a brand, but also as a leader in your space, to be like, hey, look, here's what's going on. Here's how I can be a thought leader and how I can support you guys and give you guys inspiration and continue providing you with value, even if you can't buy from me right now. Because when this whole thing, passes and people start getting, the economy boosts back up again, people start having that disposable income, they're going to remember the brands that consistently stood out in their feed as inspiring, as relevant, as being there for them and actually supporting them through these difficult times.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get in the habit of, I mean, and it's for good measure. I mean, as soon as I saw the pandemic kick in, I started to contract. I went through my like monthly budget and cut out everything that I knew was going to be shitty. Like let's like this, just like on Netflix. I cut out all the bills that I just left on basically recurring payments. I think going lean is the first step, but once you've cut down to the lean of your business and you can run it like you've got your basic operating status, I think the goal here is to be expanding. I think a lot of people get scared, but for people our age, new companies that are starting up, or maybe you've never started an online business before, this is the time where you can really push out and expand, because there's so many people that are diving in right now.
Mm.
You and I have been using Zoom as a part of business for years now, whereas all of a sudden there's this hopscotch over or leapfrog over one another to buy like webcams and microphones so people can do online business. This is something we've been prepared for years. Like, oh well, good, life pretty much goes on as normal. Do you have any suggestions for someone that's never done e-commerce or really never played in and obviously in the social media space, like my goal is to just I just touch everything I can. But what do you think like a kind of brick and mortar store should be looking at if they're looking at going out of business? What do you do in those moments when you're so panicked and you can't expand? How do you still expand when everything else is fearful?
Mm. Well, if you are operating from a fearful state, you're going to make fearful decisions and fearful actions. So, this is something that I cover with my clients all the time because, they come to me and they're like, okay, what's the story that I need to tell? Like, what's the story that I need to tell in order to sell more product, in order to like catch the attention of the right people? And I'm just like, whoa, 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 pause. Look at where the energy that you're trying to tell the story with, one of panic, of desperation, of I don't know what the fuck I'm doing energy. Like from that place, you are not going to be able to tell a story, my friend. And I can give you all the pretty words and you can recite them and regurgitate them, and you're not going to be getting the results that you want because people feel you more than they hear you. They might not remember what you say in those actual stories that you told, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And so the first step, especially if there's brick and mortar business or someone that's considering to go and move online, is to actually take a step back, to basically go back to the foundation and ask themselves, why did I start this business? Number one, why am I doing this to begin with? Because you might realize there might be things that you're kind of like, oh, again, blinders on, like, let me just move into the online space, create a brand and like call it a day. But you might realize that this whole pandemic and everything that's happening is a gift for you to take a step back and reevaluate what the hell you're doing to begin with, which is what most people are missing. Why are you doing what you're doing? And you might find the answer is still the same. You still have a really strong why. You might actually find that maybe a brick and mortar has been just a few years old. And I know that a lot of people that are listening to this and maybe have that, they don't want to hear it. But it's like, once you take a step back and ask yourself the big boy, big girl question, which is, why am I doing this? Okay, this is why I'm doing it. And perhaps you're still connected to it. Perhaps you're starting to see that you're falling out of alignment right then and there. So once you realize why you're doing this business to begin with, you want to ask yourself, well, what is the vision? What do I actually want to create? What is it that I want to create and for whom? Then you might try again, see that maybe it doesn't make sense for me to be running this business, or it makes sense for me to move in the online space for this specific audience. And then what is important to you? What do you actually stand for? What are your values? And from there, then you can with confidence move forward and say, like, you know what, my business is bigger than me. I have to serve people. I have to serve these people who need me right now, and they're in the online space. Here's what I got to do. And from that energy, that's where you start to build that brand. But if you're kind of sitting there banging your head against the wall, forcing yourself to move online because you quote unquote have to, and you don't actually know the reason why you're doing it, and you're just doing it out of panic because everybody's on Zoom, and like now you got to be on Zoom too, that's not coming from the right place. It's not coming from the right energy. And anything you build from there is just going to be like trying to like push a freaking rock against a mountain, up a mountain.
Yeah, even in the investing space, I try to. It's so hard to try to teach someone to follow their own like path. Just like you said, that a lot of people look for, oh, tell me technically what am I supposed to be doing? Like what times am I supposed to be posting? And they miss that larger question, which is, well, what would you be interested in doing for the next 5 to 10 years, or what are you actually interested in learning more about? Because when you follow those ideas, they'll take you so much further. I think a lot of people, yeah, they get scared not just about moving online, but about maybe transitioning into doing something that they'd always wanted to do. And this is one of those perfect moments where everything is a miss, everything is going left, right, and center. So it's the best time where if you can find your center and really piece together what keeps you moving forward, there's nothing to stop you. Like if all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I'm going to make paper mache, like origami on every day, that's all I'm going to do. Chances are you could probably start a brand that does that if you just keep going through and you're like, I'm so stoked about this origami. People will they'll rally behind you for your or your paper mache loons or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
people, yeah, it's a difficult one to try to show people it's there. Like, I can't show you what you're like, we can't teach you what you're interested in. We won't know what that is for individuals. But once you find that, if you know what your passion is, pursuing that this at this moment and trying to share your excitement in it is the value. That's what people find valuable. You know, it's maybe not even necessarily a product or a service. It's just your excitement for that paper mache that like gets people gets people amped, and or it's
Hmm.
entertaining. So you know, I try to remind people this in the investing space too, which is look for things that you think will hold your interest for the next 10 years, so that way you keep showing up. Because if you keep showing up, there's very little to stop you from being successful at that point. um,
Hmm.
give us a little story about your give us some background about your story. Like how, like what were some of the roughest parts of your early days as an entrepreneur, and what are some of the best days like now? And yeah, leave it at that.
Okay. So I had no idea that I was going to become an entrepreneur, and I definitely had no prediction that I was going to be helping entrepreneurs with their brand story. Could not have envisioned this path for myself in any way, shape, or form. So I would say when we think about the biggest challenges that I had in my path as an entrepreneur was figuring out what the hell that looked like for me. I came from corporate. I was working as a brand strategist, and I had a very similar. I feel like, and now by now it's a very millennial story of I didn't feel like I had purpose. I got fed up, and sorry, there's dogs here. They bark. So I got really fed up, and then I decided to do the social experiment, which I told you about, in which I spent a year circumnavigating the globe by sleeping in the homes of strangers that I would meet through human connection. So, like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, I
Yeah.
did that around the world, sleeping in the homes of strangers, and I was confused. I think a lot of people, even entrepreneurs, some people are like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And some people just like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with that. Like what business I'm going to start. For me, it was more so about accepting that I had a very specific vision of how I wanted to help people, which is helping them heal themselves and their business through the art of storytelling. And I was like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to do that. So the challenge was being like, literally, who needs this, and how can I be the one that's delivering it? And to me, the hardest part of being an entrepreneur is just figuring out how the hell to build a business. And to me, it's like it wasn't the creative part. It wasn't like what's the product, what's the offer. It's like how do I create a contract? You know what I mean? Like Acuity, what's that? Like, how do I get somebody to like just get on my calendar? Like, how do I actually get the business part set up? But again, this is why what I highly recommend for people is figure out your why and your what, because when you are connected to that bigger picture of why you're doing what you're doing and what you can create from it and who you can serve, every other little detail, it just becomes figure outable. It just becomes something that you freaking figure out. You ask the right people, the universe helps. So that was like my challenges was really understanding how I can turn this big idea that's in my head and actually turn it into intangible, actionable reality that monetizes. And that was the big entrepreneur journey, which I think a lot of people struggle with. And I was able to figure out in my own way. And then in terms of the benefits is, well, holy shit, I wake up every day and I get to do what I love. And even, when I have challenges, it's something I'm willing to fight for. I'm willing to work through because I have this bigger why that really drives me and the work that I do. I get to teach people how to, free themselves and free their mind by telling the right stories, to connect with one another, to connect with their audience through the stories that they tell. I get to do that by being myself. I get to be paid to be me and to do what I do best. And I think that's a pretty sweet deal if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to pursue, and back to our last sentiment here, is that being able to pursue what you're interested in over the long term is always a win, even if it doesn't seem profitable at first. when I started playing music when I was 15 years old, I realized right away that this was not a profitable avenue, but it was something that I knew I would do for the rest of my life. So you have to kind of discern, Naval mentions this, to pretty much discern one thing that makes you money, one thing that keeps you fit, and one thing that makes you happy and happy and health, or makes you smarter, I guess. Keep just a few of those things on the table, and focus on the like 3 or 4 ideas that really keep you moving. But it's easier. Like if I were to try to have focused on music to make money, it would have been the hardest brand story to sell, because it's just not a profitable margin. So you kind of got to be picky and choosy so you can use that. But having that long-term drive, that long-term investment, it'll bring you through all the problems that you face, like trying to figure out Calendly or something ridiculous there. And again, the same thing in the investment world. We try to encourage people to find what interests them to invest in, so that way they always keep coming back to learn more about where they're parking money, and what they're doing, instead of just blindly throwing money into a 401k or an IRA or something. Really use your own interests to drive your portfolio home, and just make such a huge difference. So, and in the conservation of time and energy here, because I know it's probably late there for you, if you could give one piece of advice to not just entrepreneurs but people in general, for this pandemic, what piece of advice to be successful do you think, and what piece of advice are you following to be successful during this pandemic?
Mm. hmm I would say what I'm following and what I'm also encouraging my clients as well is, with every challenge, there is opportunity. So right now, the biggest thing to man, can you hear the dogs? I'm so sorry.
He is very loud. Yes, I can. The dog
I
is very loud.
apologize. He's
Bally
very
dogs.
passionate dog. Bally dogs. They know what they want. Um, there was somebody walking, and that's why. Okay, so going back to the point, if there is one piece of advice that I can really impart on people, especially entrepreneurs, is right now is a time to manage your mindset, and really, again, not operate. If you're operating from the fear of scarcity and concern, you are going to get results that reflect fear, scarcity, and concern. But for you to take a step back and ask yourself different questions, and instead of being like, oh man, I can't do this, or I'm worried about this, stop, get rid of this language, just completely just wipe it clean from your brain, and instead train yourself to repeat, where's the opportunity here? What can I create? What can I make better? Because as you're showing up every day and you're showing up as a leader, you want to make sure that you're coming from this place of energy where people can feel you, they can feel your confidence, they can feel that even if you don't know what you're doing, you are there to figure it out. And that's the thing. Part of being a leader is not necessarily knowing the answer. Yes, there's a pandemic. You don't necessarily know everything that you need to do. Not everything is clear to you. A little friend. But that is not what really matters here. What matters is you are showing 100% up, and you're like, if I don't know it, I'm going to figure it out. If I don't have the answer, I'm going to find it. If I don't feel good, I'm going to set ways for me to flip that attitude, and from one of scarcity to abundance. So the biggest piece of advice I have is manage your state. Manage your state, manage your state, manage your state. From there, make sure you're connected to your why and your what and your values. And from there, the strategies come. Everything else is figure outable. You can ask the right person, you can Google it, you can figure it out. But none of that matters if you're not coming from a place where you're ready to go and you're ready to show up as a leader.
Yeah, it's one of these things too, where so many big entrepreneurs like, yeah, meditation, and people take that in, but I don't think that they really understand how much work it is to meditate every day. Like, especially
Mm.
if you go into I don't know how what's your when you sit down to meditate on a daily base, like on a daily basis, do you have a meditation practice?
Yeah, it's I hypnotize myself.
You hypnotize yourself.
Yeah, I do. I
Tell me
do.
how that goes.
As you know, I do. I'm a master NLP practitioner. So I just do to my clients. I do not do it on myself. I have a certain hypnosis that I take myself into, put myself into trance, and basically uh, without getting into the nitty gritty, I go into my heart and then I just have a conversation with my soul. So it's a specific visualization that drops me into a trance, like just a meditative state. And then I have a conversation and she tells me what to do. I'm like, hey, soul, tell me what I need to do next. She just tells me, and you know what? She's pretty on point.
Nice. You got like your hype girl and over in the corner rubbing your shoulders, putting ice on your.
Yeah, I mean, she's like this beautiful woman. It's me it's a glowing version of me, like in a white dress. She's always wearing a different outfit. And I talk to her and I'm like, show me what I need to see, show me what I need to hear. And she'll give me like a jumble of words or some sort of vision. And then the moment I like wake up, I usually write it down, and then it might make sense then. It doesn't, sometimes it doesn't make sense. But it's like, I'm like, oh my God, it totally makes sense. So that's my special form of meditation. I don't do it the traditional like Om way, but rather I take myself through a customized hypnosis that I created for myself, put myself in trance, and then just figure out what I need to say to me.
That's the
The
best way.
answers come from within.
Yeah, or the river. I often get answers from the river or the sloth. Always great channels of information. Celine, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. I'm sure a bunch of people are going to find this valuable because there's such a big transition in business coming up. I will leave all the links for Celine's website, her Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all those down below. If you like this content, remember to give us those thumbs up. If you're new to the Bear family, please remember to hit subscribe and also follow Celine on her fantastic accounts as well. Always motivational and obviously beautiful and inspiring content coming out from her side. A little bit more, she looks much better than I do, obviously. So it's much easier to just to enjoy the content. It's a little bit harsh over here, but we appreciate all your guys' support. This is Teal with the Arcane Bear. Another fantastic guest, Celine. I hopefully we'll have some type of normalcy soon, and we'll come dance in Bali again.
Yes, let's do it.
I look forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Bye.